I have logged 900 hours of trench work for the Survey Corps, and I can tell you exactly what a dead relay sounds like. It sounds like nothing. A flat gray hiss on the hydrophone, the kind you stop noticing after the first hour of a dive. What I heard coming off the floor of the Vesa Rift that morning was not nothing. It had a shape to it, a slow 4-count pulse, on, off, repeating every 11 seconds like a held breath let out on purpose. I was the pressure systems engineer aboard the Halcyon Reach, a survey tender no bigger than a fishing trawler. 3 weeks into mapping fault lines nobody in command cared about until they needed new coordinates for a mining lease. Captain Aris Bellamy ran a crew of 6 and did not enjoy surprises. I brought her the readout anyway. "That's not geological," I said. "Geological doesn't count to 4. She looked at it a long time. Then she asked me the question I'd been waiting for. "Whose is it?" I didn't know yet. I only knew it matched, almost pulse for pulse, a broadcast the Velisk Enclave on the surface shelf had been sending out for 19 years. A looping, wordless song that the regional authority had classified as beacon malfunction and left running because nobody wanted the paperwork to shut it down. I'd heard it once, faint, off a public relay. I hadn't thought about it since. Now it was answering itself from 4,000 meters down, in the dark, from a colony every survey chart listed as lost. The Velisk are amphibious, gill-fringed, skin the color of wet slate until they light, and when they light, it means something. Their bonded pairs share what they call the melt, 2 separate color patterns folding into a single new hue when the bond partners are close enough to touch. It isn't decoration, it's how they know they're still whole. A Velisk cut off from their partner doesn't just grieve. Their own light dims, degrades, starts to misfire, like a heart missing half its rhythm. Bellamy didn't have orders to investigate a 19-year-old malfunction report. She had a mapping contract and a fuel budget, and a crew of 6 who'd signed on for fault line surveys, not salvage. Our navigator, a quiet man named Oduya who rarely offered an opinion on anything, pointed out that the detour would cost us 2 days of contract time we had no line item to bill. Bellamy heard him out, the way she heard everyone out, and didn't argue the math. She just looked at that 4-count pulse for another 10 seconds, then said, "Take us up to the shelf first. I want to hear the surface half of this before I put us in that rift." The surface enclave gave us Ilan Vray inside an hour. Ilan was thin in a way that had nothing to do with hunger, skin the muddy gray of a light gone out, and she had been standing at that relay every day for 19 years, because the authority that ran her enclave had told her, and then stopped telling her, that the Hollow Reach colony was gone, sealed under rockfall in a tectonic slip, all souls presumed lost, structurally unreachable, not worth the dive tonnage. Ilan had never stopped broadcasting the Bond song anyway. Not because she believed it would reach anyone, because it was the only thing she had left to do with the part of her that used to answer someone. "You believe your bonded partner is alive down there?" I said to her, more statement than question. "I believe my light hasn't finished going out," she said. "That isn't the same as belief." I asked her why the authority let her keep broadcasting all those years if they'd already written the colony off. She said they hadn't, exactly. They'd simply stopped renewing the maintenance order and stopped answering her requests for a dive survey. And after the 5th year of silence she'd understood that as its own kind of answer. She kept the relay running on parts she scavenged herself, off equipment nobody else wanted. 19 years of scavenged parts and a song nobody official was listening to. When I asked if she'd ever considered that the pulse might really be nothing, she said of course she had, every single day, and had sent it anyway, because the alternative was to stop, and stopping felt like agreeing they were dead. We took her aboard. Bellamy filed it as a passenger transfer for a translation consult, which was a lie of exactly the size a small ship's captain is allowed to tell without anyone above her noticing. Then she put the Halcyon Reach over the rift and took us down. 4,000 meters is a place that punishes mistakes slowly and completely. The hull groaned at every 100 meters like it was clearing its throat, and the readouts on my board ticked down in numbers I had memorized the safe range of years ago and never stopped respecting. I sat at the pressure board with my hand near the emergency vent the whole descent, watching numbers I'd trust with my life and not one bar more. Nobody talked much past the required calls, depth, seal integrity, hull temperature, because at that depth conversation is a luxury you spend air on. Ilan stood at the aft port with both palms flat on the glass, watching the black go by, her skin flickering weaker the deeper we went. Not because she was failing, I understood later, but because she was listening so hard she'd stopped tending anything else. Somewhere past the 2,000-meter mark, Oduya read out a depth figure, and his voice cracked slightly on the number, and nobody said anything about it, because we all felt it too. The Hollow Reach colony was a bubble of stubborn architecture, wedged under a rockfall the size of a small mountain. one cracked seal away from flooding for good. Our sonar found an airlock still cycling on backup power, a thread of atmosphere holding against 4,000 meters of ocean because somebody down there had spent 19 years rationing every joule to keep that one door working. Bellamy took the Halcyon Reach in on manual, no fleet behind her, no rescue convoy, no orders authorizing any of it. One small ship and a crew who'd decided a 19-year malfunction report deserved a second look. We mated our lock to theirs with 11 centimeters of clearance, and I felt every one of them in my back teeth. The keeper who opened that inner door for us was Sael Rowe, and his light was barely a light at all anymore. A dull, guttering gray-green, the color of something that had almost forgotten what color meant. Behind him stood 4 survivors, all that was left of a colony that had been 300 strong. Sael did not ask who we were. He looked past me, past Bellamy, past the whole crew, straight at Ilan standing frozen in our lock, and made a sound I have no word for, because the Valisk don't waste words on moments like that. They use light. Their patterns found each other across the width of that airlock and began, slowly, painfully, to change. His dull gray-green climbing, her muddy gray warming, both colors reaching for a shared third hue neither of them could hold alone. It took almost a full minute. I have never in 900 hours of trench work seen anything happen that slowly and that completely at the same time. Our medic got to work on the survivors while I got to work on the seal, running emergency compound into cracks that had been failing by fractions of a millimeter for 19 years. It was not glamorous. It was valves and sealant and a headlamp and my own hands shaking slightly from the pressure, and none of it made for a story anyone would tell at a bar. But the seal held, and the colony's little reserve of air stopped bleeding out, and that was the whole job, done right, nothing more asked of it than that. Bellamy called it in on the way back up. 1 small ship, 4 survivors, a stabilized seal, a request for a proper hospital tender, and an engineering team to finish what a 19-year-old malfunction report had started. No war fleet answered that call, because none was needed. What was needed was one captain willing to burn a fuel budget on a hunch, and she'd already spent it. Sael and Ilan stood together at the aft port the whole ascent, their shared color steady now, neither of them speaking, because speaking would have wasted the light. Near the surface, Sael turned to me, not to Bellamy, not to the crew, to me, the one who'd first said a 4-count pulse wasn't geological, and gave one long, deliberate pulse of color against his own throat, gone before I could ask our translator what it meant. She told me later she hadn't caught it either. It wasn't in any lexicon she had, it was only for me. I've carried that light for 3 years now, in a report that closes with the words, seal stabilized, survivors recovered, cause of failure, nobody asked twice. Command filed it as routine. I know better. Somewhere under 4,000 meters of black water, 2 people are sharing one color again because a small ship's captain wouldn't let a 19-year rumor stay dead, and because I still don't know what that last pulse of light said to me, only that I was meant to keep it, and that I always will.